I can tell you with confidence right now, the fact I've had to raise the camera about a foot in the air means that anyone who's outside can definitely see the camera because it's just right in front of my window now. Hi. I'm going to try not to be awkward because I've tried to film 2 videos before and I was extremely awkward. I spent about 15 minutes trying to set up my camera and now all of my neighbours here outside can see. But that's fine, we'll move on. I have decided to make this video because I am the utmost expert on this subject obviously, but I want to talk about how I increased my reading from 6 books last year to 46 so far this year. And I'm reading my 47th, I'm about a third of the way through. I thought I'd just give some tips as a complete beginner to give you some tips to encourage yourself on how to read more because it's actually been really great. Like, I've read way more than I've probably read my whole life at this point because I was never a huge reader, and I'm really proud of myself and I really liked a lot of the books I read, and I'm kind of finding new things to do, filling my time a lot, which for some people is what they need right now. They need to fill their time because it's a weird situation and a lot of people are at home most of the time now and will be for at least a couple more weeks, I imagine. So here's some tips and tricks. My number one piece of advice, which is something that really helped me and encouraged me to go from 6, but I didn't have the motivation, and I'm at 46 so far this year, so big increase, has been that I joined the library. I joined it last year, which is why I got the 6 done. I probably would have only read 1 or 2 books if I hadn't joined the library. I joined the library and this year I got really into it because I decided I was going to start reading more, and without the library I probably would only be at about 10 books because sometimes you just don't want to pay for books because you don't know if you're going to like it or not, or sometimes they're expensive. For a Kindle book it's like $9.99 and you're just downloading it, and I understand that they need to pay people, but it's not the same experience as getting a book, which is about $9.99. You can get loads of books for free on the library, so I just recommend that as a really good jumping off point to just find what type of books you like even, or just even to read 1 or 2. I know that in the current timeline of events, because pretty much everywhere is closed at the minute, that could be a bit difficult, but a lot of them have apps that you can get their books online from, which is wonderful, and a lot of libraries have opened a temporary online joining situation. My sister managed to join her local library just online by searching it, so if you thought it would be difficult, just give it a look and see if they're open for online joiners, because at the moment I think a lot of libraries are, and it really is a good way to fill your time. So the library is great, get a bunch of free books and just sort of take them out and you can read them whenever, you don't need to pay for anything, it's great. My second piece of advice is to start with audiobooks. I know that some people think that audiobooks are cheating because you're not sitting down and you're not reading with your eyes and therefore it's not physically taxing, but I don't believe that mindset. You're still experiencing the book and you're still taking in everything that's happening. It's just a different way of taking it in. And I just think that's so unfair for people that can't read for any reason. So for me, reading and audiobooks are the same thing, they're just completely different experiences, but you're still getting the book, you're still taking it in. So I think if you struggle with reading, start with an audiobook or 2, and a lot of libraries also have audiobooks now that you can just borrow. So it's a really great place to start because you can do other things while you listen and you can still get through a book. Even though you don't have the hours to set aside to sit and read it, you can, you know, do your work while you listen to an audiobook, or you can go running while you listen to an audiobook, and it's just a really good place to get through a book, to encourage yourself to read more. I would start a book and I'd set it down, and by the end of the week I'd feel discouraged about finishing it, whereas with an audiobook I can just read it whenever. So I recommend audiobooks. Tip 3 is to start small. Not everyone's going to be like this. Some people prefer to only read big books, but I know that I came off reading pretty much nothing for like at least 5 or 6 years to then all of a sudden I started reading Harry Potter. It was really easy to start with because the book started small, and then I got to Order the Phoenix and I had to give that up for the whole year because it was so long. I just don't think I gave myself enough of a jumping in point to getting into reading before I got to a really long book. So I recommend that even if you'd prefer a longer book, just start with a couple of smaller ones, because I know maybe there wouldn't be classed as like legitimate a book, but even if you don't think it's legitimate, it is legitimate. Even if the book's only 150 pages long or whatever, that's still 150 pages that you're reading. So just start out with some smaller books, maybe some books that are like 300 pages, 280, something like that, and get through a couple of them, and then you'll get really into the idea of reading. You'll be more comfortable with reading. You're more likely to then go on to longer books. So if you do struggle with staying into long books or keeping your attention on longer books, do a couple of small ones to start until you get into the idea of reading a book, and then you can move on to the longer ones. And that way you won't lose focus or encouragement or motivation, because that was my problem. I'd lose motivation and I'd never finish it. That's why I read 6 books last year in about 3 months, and then I took like a 5-month break, whereas now I'm on 5 months and I've read 46 because I started small, and whenever I couldn't focus on a big book I read a smaller book, and I didn't think of that as a failure. I thought of that as I'm still reading another book. Tip number 4 is to read a bunch of different types of books and just find what you're interested in. Find like your niche of genres or characters that you like. I do like young adult fiction, stuff like that, but that's a broad thing. Like a young adult mystery is going to be completely different to a young adult romance. So I just recommend reading a bunch of books. I recently read like a thriller horror set in like the Victorian period, and it wasn't like young adult, I'd say, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it like a 4-star because I thought it was really good, and I wasn't expecting that because I hate horror movies and everything. It wasn't the type of thing I would usually read, but I really liked it, whereas some like young adult romances or stuff that I thought maybe I would have given like a solid 3, I end up not liking as much. So you just need to find what interests you. So I recommend just starting with a bit of everything until you find what you like, and you'll be more encouraged to keep reading if you know what you like and you know you're probably going to like the book because you like so many like it. So I just recommend trying a bunch of different stuff instead of keeping to your one genre, in case you're limiting yourself to some amazing books and genres that you'll like. My 5th tip, and honestly I think is probably the second most important after joining the library, was that I made it almost like a competition with my sister. We decided that we were both gonna read as many books as possible, and we keep updated on the books that each other are reading. And while it's not an official competition of like who will beat the other, it's almost like a motivation for me to keep reading. She reads so fast and so much. She can do like a 500-word book in a day. I'll struggle with a 300-word book in a day. So it's really encouraging for me to know that I sort of want to at least keep up with her. I want us to be on relatively even standings. So I just really recommend that you either join a club or you find a friend or family member who also wants to read more, and that way you'll be more likely to read if you know that you want it. You know, you both want to have the same amount of books, or you both, like one of you liked a book so you recommend it to the other, you want to read it because you know they liked it. I just recommend having someone with you on your journey to encourage you to read books more. My dog is barking. Tip number 6 is to make some time to read. I know that's like so obvious, but I think that's where I struggled. Was I always saw it as a chore because it would eat into my incredibly important time playing Sims non-stop, whereas now I leave like an hour a day or so because I have the time. Some people don't. Maybe it's only an hour or 2 a week, but I leave like an hour just to read, and then I know, well, this is my reading time, so it's not a chore to read the book because it's my reading time, you know. I just recommend giving yourself time to read so it doesn't feel like it's eating into all your normal activities, so you're more likely to not like reading because you feel it's taking away time from all your other important things to do like Sims. Number 7 is something that I am experiencing at the moment, and it's book exhaustion. I think that's a real thing. You sort of burn yourself out a bit if you're reading a lot. Maybe I've been speeding through a couple of books recently just to sort of really gain that lead on my sister, because she's not thinking of it as a competition really, but I am, and I want to win this competition. So I sort of sped through a couple books. I did take them in. I'm not saying I cheated or anything, like I definitely still read them and I took them in and everything, but it sort of left me almost not wanting to read for a few days because I was like, I've been reading non-stop this past week. I want to give myself time to just not read. and so I sort of had to force myself to give myself sort of a few days off, let her catch up a little bit, just do some other stuff, so that way whenever I came back to reading books I'd be more likely to actually enjoy it more and feel like I wasn't forcing myself to read it. I'm sort of just reading one at a time and just being slow with it, and I think I'm back into the reading mood. I just think I had to take a week where I didn't really read as much and I just sort of let my life go by, so that way I could heal my mind and be ready to get back into the reading game. If you do get exhausted reading, take a day or two, take a week. It doesn't matter if you get bored reading or it really starts to annoy you, just take some time off. Don't force yourself to read if you don't want to. It'll be much more likely that you'll finish a book and like it if you're not forcing yourself to sit through it when you're tired and you don't want to, just so that you can say you finished it. Tip number 8. I can't form my hands as well for this one, so it's going to look a bit more ugly. Tip number 8. Your library will only have so many books, and if you can't get on the library that's even less, and you'll only have a select amount of books. These are the ones I have bought, but I've had them for years and never read them, so we'll see if I ever actually do get around to reading them, but they make such a nice backdrop, so that's why I'm sitting here. But tip number 8 is check your daily deals on, you know, Kindle or whatever you use if you have another site, and just see what's available to you for a smaller price, because sometimes buying Kindle books or books online or whatever, it's a bit of an investment. It's like $8.99, $9.99. You don't know a lot about the story and you might not like it, so you kind of don't want to spend the money on it until you know you'll like it. A lot of places have deals where they'll have a select amount of books every day for like 99p, and if any of those sound interesting to you, buy 1 or 2 of them, and you'll feel so much more gratified getting a book for 99p than if you spent $8.99 on a book and didn't like it. You know what I mean? You're more likely to feel less like, oh, I wasted so much time on that book, I'm not gonna buy another one at full price because I hated that one. Also, that means that if you find a book that maybe you wouldn't want to have bought at full price and it's like 99p and you still think it sounds kind of interesting, you could always give it a go, and if you don't like it, then you know you didn't spend full price, and if you do like it, then what a deal, you got it for like 99p. That's good. So my camera just turned off, so I'm hoping it recorded everything up to the time it made noise. Tip number 9, probably everyone knows about this and uses it, and it's not new to you, but Goodreads. I use Goodreads and it's really great for me motivating myself to keep reading. I don't really follow anyone on it. I follow like 2 or 3 booktubers and my sister, and that's it. It doesn't get updated an awful lot on my homepage because like no one's reading that much. But I just like it because I like to leave reviews, and I leave quite in-depth reviews to every book I've read. Well, I say in-depth, it's like a paragraph, it's not an essay. And I like to do that because then I feel like there's a reason I'm reading them, and I like to feel like I'm making an impact on the next person who's gonna look at it. Maybe they'll see my review and they'll say like, oh well, she liked this one because of this, or she didn't like this one because of this, and I, you know, feel the same, or that doesn't bother me, so then I'll give the book a go. And I just like being able to quickly and easily look at all the books I've read this year in order and see how many stars I gave them, just to sort of jog my memory. So Goodreads is actually really good, and there's like little groups you can join, which I haven't done because I'm an old woman and don't understand technology. You can join groups and maybe they'll even recommend books, or it'll be like a book club and you'll all have to read it so you can answer questions about it, or you can find lists of books you must read before you die, and then you can sort of keep motivated because you'll always have a book being recommended to you. Maybe someone you follow read a book and they gave it a 5-star and you want to figure out why they liked it so much so you can read it. And it's also just really good for keeping track of everything, and you have evidence that you read something and that you did or didn't like it, and it's just really good to have all that in one place. And I think it's a really good website. Not being sponsored, which I was first video, and look at me, I'm not being sponsored, but you know, Goodreads, everyone will reach out to me, I'll sponsor you. I'll sponsor you. And tip number 10, which is extremely obvious, is to always just have a list of books that you can read and you might read next. I don't tend to follow this. I don't ever read stuff in order. I have like 5 books I've just set on the floor beside my bed that I keep meaning to read, and I've never read them because I just keep looking on the library and stuff. This is really good if you hit a slump. You have a list built in of books that you're interested in, books that you want to read, and that way if you hit a slump or you can't figure out what to read, or maybe you don't have access to any other books, you've got like 3 or 4 books in the cupboard that you know were on your to be read list or whatever, and that way you'll be more encouraged to read because you've always got something that you can fall back on. I just recommend always having like at least 1 or 2 books available to you that you would be interested in reading if whatever you were reading next falls through. So those are my top 10 tips. That's the list. I'm bad at outro, so here's my outro. Those are my tips. I hope they were helpful to you. Probably not, but if they did help you, great, and if not, leave a comment and tell me what helped you, and maybe I can use it in my own life or something. Those are my tips. Thanks for watching. Bye. Is this a good level? It looks wrong again. Oh no, there they are. Oh no, wait, those are more people. Oh god. Why is this neighbourhood so busy? We're on lockdown. My second piece of advice. Why is there no one out anymore? Well, probably because it's raining and we're in quarantine, but